The sun was already setting, and in front of a chair, a guy was standing. Sitting on it was a curvaceous girl who told Yanmu that her brother wanted to buy a car. The protagonist closed his eyes, clenched the paper, and revealed that he had no more money. The woman then stood up and asked what had happened to this month's salary. She advised him to sell all the junk he had so he could give her money. But she soon noticed his pocket was empty and slapped him across the face. While Yanmu was devastated, she called him garbage and asked where he had hidden the money. He then looked at her, laughing, and said she was asking for it again. The girl grabbed a glass of water and threw it on him. What a humiliation. On the other hand, the art was really good. She then called him a loser and asked how he had the nerve to laugh. That lip of his, like a guy who had hit rock bottom, really sold it. He admitted he was trash and had no money left. Then he screamed, saying that just this month her parents had bought a house and a car with his money. Even if he earned $100 million a month, it wouldn't be enough for how much her family wanted to drain him dry. The woman then asked what he meant by her family, and questioned whether they didn't all consider themselves the same family. She said he was cold-hearted and asked why he didn't care about the family. Yanmu laughed. He told her to go to hell with that idiotic notion of family because he was tired of them. The woman, equally unfazed, told him if that was the case, he could die 100 times over. He spread his arms and asked if she really thought he didn't have the guts. She said she'd love to see him die, but first she wanted a moment to buy some life insurance, so at least she'd get some value out of it before he went. Yanmu smiled. He said Fang Yuxue really was tough after all. He turned and ran toward the window. She shouted at him, but the guy was about to find out if he could fly. In the middle of his fall, he wondered if that was truly the end of his life. Then the scene shifted to July 1st, 2009. A short-haired woman asked Yanmu why he was suddenly kneeling. A blonde guy questioned if kneeling as soon as you walked in the door was a family tradition of his. That's when the protagonist seemed to regain his senses. He was surprised, wondering if he was alive. The woman, arms crossed, asked if he was going crazy. He looked up and called her Mom. Apparently in China, when you marry a woman, you start calling her mother Mom. But this one only said he could call her that if he put another 40,000 into the wedding. The guy was a bit confused, wondering what kind of dowry price that was. Then he remembered it had all happened 8 years ago when he proposed to Fang Yuxue. The price had gone from 40,000 to 400,000, and she asked what he thought about that. Gradually, he got up, saying he thought a lot about it. In his past life, that wretched family had drained everything from him until he died in a pit. He then said he agreed. The so-called mother's eyes gleamed, and she asked if he was really willing to do it, but he shouted that there was no way he'd agree to such idiocy. Now that he'd been given a second chance, he wasn't about to make the same mistakes. The mother asked what he meant, questioning if he really thought her daughter wasn't worth $1 million. Fang Yuxue remained silent. Yanmu asked if the whole family had hearing or mental problems. He had already made it clear he wouldn't spend a cent on this wedding. Yuxue stood up and asked how he could do such a thing, but he replied that she should be arguing with her mother for being sold for $1 million. She made a pained expression and said it hadn't been easy for her relatives to raise her, so they deserved to ask for something. The father then wanted to know what he gained besides a loser brother who only wanted his money. The blonde idiot stood up, demanding to know who he was calling a loser. The father, mercilessly, said it was him who couldn't even earn enough to feed himself. The blonde guy went in for a big punch, but it seemed Yanmu had fought this guy in a past life and wasn't going to act the same way. He smashed the guy's head against the pavement while the mother screamed at him to let Xiaoyu go, who was supposedly family. But Yanmu responded that as long as he wasn't married, none of them were his family. He then turned around and declared that from this moment on, he had nothing to do with any of them. Fang Yuxue asked if their relationship wasn't worth any money at all. Yanmu asked if she had ever wondered how many of his relatives had worked hard to earn $500,000. In his past life, his hopeful father spent everything he had on lottery tickets and ended up winning. With that, he gave $500,000, and Yanmu gave the other half, securing the marriage. That was a man who gave his all. Yanmu then walked out the door, saying all she wanted was someone to support her family, and that someone wasn't going to be him. The next scene shows him already at the same lottery his father had won before. The prize had accumulated to over $100 million. In his past life, at this very moment, he went down and won a ticket with his father. He hoped he could clearly remember this, even though his memories were muddled from the passage of time. He then walked to the counter and said he wanted to buy a lottery ticket. The clerk informed him that the drawing would be held tonight at 9:15 p.m. That's when he glanced to the side and saw his father arriving. His father wondered if he was really seeing his son, since theoretically, he was supposed to be at Fang Yuxue's place. Yanmu noticed that his father looked completely worn out and wondered if he ever had a chance to rest. He hid so his father wouldn't see him. At that moment, his father, clutching a ticket, was praying that if he won, he wouldn't have to worry about the price of his son's wedding. Yanmu swore that from this day on, his family would never suffer again. That's when the system came into play. The novice mission was to win $100 million and build his own industry. He had 24 hours to do this, but 3 hours had already passed, leaving him with only 21 hours. If he failed, he would lose his life. The protagonist was understandably confused. The next scene took him back to his home. Looking at his hand, he knew he had 21 hours left according to this system. Suddenly, he heard a voice asking what someone was doing and telling them to let go. Yanmu recognized the voice as Manhwa's. He rushed up the stairs, calling her name and asking what was wrong. Manhua was a childhood friend, almost like a sister to him. In his past life, her mother had borrowed money from loan sharks, and as expected, things turned grim when they couldn't repay. Both ended up in their graves. Yanmu swore he would protect her in this life. Inside one of the rooms, two men were taunting her, saying she could scream all she wanted because no one would save her. One of them, with an open shirt, mocked her for possibly calling Yanmu, implying he was useless. In the next moment, Yanmu delivered a swift blow to the first guy. He saved her quickly. It was a punch and a hug, a spot and rescue. The blonde guy didn't even know who had hit him. Another man approached from behind, asking if Yanmu was tired of living. But Yanmu easily immobilized his arm, questioning how a gangster could be so bad at fighting. The blonde guy called him a bastard and pulled out a cutter, threatening to kill him. Yanmu, however, stated that he knew they were there for money, warning that if anyone made a move, they'd never get paid. The men questioned if he actually had money. The one in the red shirt scoffed, saying it was obvious he was dirt poor. The blonde then pointed out that the debt exceeded $500,000. Yanmu responded that he would have the money in 3 days. This time, instead of spending $500,000 on one woman, he would spend it on another. A genius move indeed. Another man reminded them of several outstanding medical debts. The blonde warned that if the due date came and they didn't have the money, Manhua would have to cover his debt. Yanmu declared that when he delivered the money, everyone would have to kneel and apologize to her. As they left, they mocked him, saying he should try his luck or he'd be without legs soon. The system then reminded him he had 20 hours left to complete the mission and had to act fast. His life was tied to survival points, and at the moment he had very few, so his body would begin to show symptoms. The system mentioned a real estate agency that was about to go bankrupt. While he pondered how his life was now determined by points, Manhua called out to him, apologizing and saying she didn't want to drag him down with her. Yanmu told her not to worry and reassured her that within 3 days he'd ensure they apologized. But then his body reacted. His head began to throb and he felt nauseous. Manhua asked if he was okay, and he collapsed on the mountain. The fall was intense, and seeing him hit the ground was truly heartbreaking. He apologized, saying he was hungry and felt weak, but he quickly realized these were the adverse symptoms the system had warned about. The scene then shifted to the Fang family home. The mother asked if he had responded to her call, to which Fang Yuxue said he hadn't. The father was ready to slap her, asking how it was possible to have a daughter who couldn't even control a man. The mother told Lao Fang to lower his hand, saying there was something off about Yanmu today. The father scratched his chin, agreeing it was strange since he usually groveled at Yuxue's feet. He wondered if Yanmu had somehow gotten rich. He then told his daughter that she needed to go and win him back before another woman did. The worst thing would be for him to become rich and for her to lose her chance to be his wife. Even the mother began pushing her out of the house, telling her to go and capture that man. No sympathy here for this cursed woman, though Fang Yuxue was now questioning why Yanmu had acted so differently today. Back with our boy, Yanmu was serving some apples to Manhua when the doorbell rang. She said she would get it, and outside it was, of course, Fang Yuxue. As soon as she saw Yanmu, she demanded to know what was going on. Yanmu asked if he hadn't made it clear that there was nothing between them anymore, or if she was there because her snobby mother wasn't satisfied. Fang Yuxue, however, shouted that it was impossible and wanted to know if he was interested in someone else or if he changed his mind just because they raised the wedding price. Yanmu told her to give up, that anything between them was completely impossible. He said that out of whatever bond they once had, he'd give her some advice. She should leave that house as soon as possible and live more freely. She ignored him, turned around, called him a delicate son of a mother, and swore he would regret it. Manhua stood there, confused, not understanding what was happening. As far as she remembered, they were close, so how had things turned this way? Yanmu told her to stay at his place for now because he had to leave for a trip. He muttered to himself that he didn't care about that stupid relationship and that it was time to explore the available businesses in the city. Out on Jiangxing Street, people were talking about the lottery drawing. Apparently, fortune fever was running wild in China. His father was there, saying all he wanted was for his son to buy a house and get married. Yanmu was hiding carefully. He didn't want anyone to know he was about to win. While watching the news, he noticed a real estate company called Fidelidade that seemed like a promising place to invest. He already knew that in the future, this company would become massive, but right now, they were facing serious challenges. If he took control of the company, he could potentially become extremely wealthy within a few years. He decided that this would be his first investment. The scene shifted to the Fidelidade real estate company the next day at 9:20 a.m. The place already looked like it had declared bankruptcy, and there were people shouting at the entrance. The system reminded him that his survival chances were low and he had little time left to complete the mission. Unfortunately, he had to visit the bank to collect his lottery winnings, which delayed him. A man in a yellow helmet walked by, mentioning he was bringing a banner. Yanmu asked why everyone was there, and they explained they hadn't been paid for half a year. Yanmu said it was common for payments from construction companies to be a little late, just a little 6 months. However, another person said that usually they could pay at the end, but in this case, the company's boss had fled, leaving the business deep in debt. Clearly, they wouldn't have any money to pay anyone, so they needed some way to get something. Yan Mu, though, seemed excited, asking if the boss really had run away. The man confirmed, saying it was information from the top employees of the company. Yan Mu left excitedly, thanking the guy. His time was limited, but at least his chances of achieving his goal were increasing. In front of a black car, people held up signs demanding payment before leaving. The company, called Fuda, had Kong Ru, a 40-year-old man wearing glasses, as its former owner. A bald man named Libio, serving as his bodyguard, muttered that the dogs were going crazy. He asked Kong why he didn't just hire people to deal with the mess, but Kong replied that letting them bark was better than inviting more trouble. At that moment, Yan Mu knocked on the window, startling the bald man. He had 25 minutes left to complete his mission. Yan Mu opened the car door and entered. He introduced himself to Kong Ru, saying he was there to talk business. The bald man grabbed him by the collar, asking if he really wanted to die. Yan Mu calmly stated that he had information that could prevent Kong Ru from spending the rest of his life behind bars. The boss told him to forget about money since he didn't have the means to pay anyone. But then Yan Mu revealed that he was there to give money. He offered to assume all the company's debts, including overdue wages, but in return, he wanted ownership of the Fuda real estate company. Kong questioned if Yan Mu understood the value he was talking about since they owed a lot, especially to unpaid employees. Yan Mu, with just 10 minutes left on the system's clock, said he'd take it all. Kong said he wouldn't even start talking for less than 50 million. Yan Mu agreed to the amount. Suddenly, Kong shouted, asking why this kid who barely had facial hair was raising his voice. The bodyguard told him to stop making up numbers. Yan Mu silenced him with a swift blow to the throat. Kong was shocked that this kid had taken down his bodyguard. He told the bald man to hold back and asked Yan Mu not to waste his time if he didn't have the money to pay employees. Yan Mu insisted he take the land and debts for 50 million and pay immediately. He knew Kong Ru was desperate to escape, and acquiring as much land as possible in this city was his goal. Yan Mu demanded everything Kong had in his name in the area. Kong asked if he was trying to make a fool of him. For the boss, getting rid of those properties was urgent. Yan Mu reassured him it was no joke and asked him to name his price. With just 5 minutes left on the system timer, the boss questioned if Yan Mu was serious, while the bald bodyguard thought he was insane. The system warned him again that with 3 minutes remaining, his senses would begin to shut down. Yan Mu confirmed he was serious and asked if the boss had made a decision. He was determined to buy the Fuda company, no matter what happened. The boss then said that if he had at least 20 million right then, they could make the transfer, and he could pay the rest later. The problem was that Yan Mu's hearing had already failed. While it seemed like a foolish situation, Yan Mu cleverly deduced from the boss's mouth movements and gestures that he was likely asking for around 20 million. Kong Ru instructed Li Biao to handle the transfer to Mr. Yan. The countdown continued with only 10 seconds remaining. Yan Mu's vision was fading, and he needed to finalize the deal by pressing his fingerprint. With 6 seconds left and then 4 seconds, the transaction succeeded. However, Yan Mu collapsed at the bank, questioning why the system hadn't announced the mission's completion. His energy was still being drained, and he felt death was imminent. At that moment, the system finally congratulated him, awarding him 13 survival points. Yan Mu didn't celebrate, he was simply relieved to be alive. The system explained that survival points could be used in the system's store or to extend his life. Meanwhile, the commotion erupted as someone shouted at Kong Ru. A man in front asked Yan Mu if he was okay. Yan Mu confirmed and told Kong Ru to use the money to pay the workers as soon as possible. Kong Ru instructed the man to inform everyone outside that they would be paid by the evening. The announcement was made through the sunroof, but the skeptical crowd doubted that months of overdue payments would suddenly be resolved. One of them said that if they weren't paid, they'd return to put an end to it for good. The bodyguard asked what their next step would be, and Kong Ru suggested returning with Yan Mu to strategize. The scene shifted to the real estate office, where the former president brought documents for Yan Mu to review. Yan Mu dismissed the old plans and marked certain areas on a map. He pointed out specific lands to purchase and others to leave untouched. Kong Ru complained that one of the areas Yan Mu wanted to buy was isolated and abandoned, calling it a waste of money. Yan Mu, however, insisted it was the perfect spot for future development as new schools and buildings would soon emerge there, making it ideal for a commercial district. Yan Mu elaborated, saying they would build an entire shopping complex, including shops, a hotel, and more, with a unique design that met safety standards. Kong Ru agreed to handle it and was told by Yan Mu that good work would always be rewarded. Kong then invited Yan Mu to an upcoming investment meeting. The scene shifted to the Jingping Hotel, where Yan Mu inquired about the investment event. He glanced back and was surprised to see Fang Yuxue there wearing a revealing dress. A chubby man beside her blushed, saying he hadn't expected her to look so stunning. Fang Yuxue appeared annoyed, as this was the only man willing to pay the exorbitant wedding price. The man pulled her aside, asking if she was distracted. It was then that she noticed Yan Mu. They exchanged looks but said nothing. The blonde-haired man sensed they might know each other. Yan Mu reflected on how quickly Fang Yuxue had moved on and dismissed any concern. It was none of his business. However, when the blonde man bumped into him on purpose, Yan Mu asked what he thought he was doing. The man accused Yan Mu of standing in the way and jabbed a finger at his chest, questioning if someone as poor as him even knew where he was. Yanmu mocked the man for his appearance, but the blonde man demanded to know if Yanmu had any idea who he was and whether he really wanted to pick a fight in front of the girl. Ignoring him, Yanmu asked Fang Yuxue about her relationship with this man, to which she replied that it had nothing to do with him. The blonde man walked away, taunting Yanmu for dreaming he'd ever have a woman like Fang Yuxue. Yanmu reflected that he had once thought Fang Yuxue was a simple and kind girl and believed the problem was her family, but it seemed he was wrong, and this realization allowed him to finally let go. The scene shifted to the investment reception. The system assigned Yanmu a mission to invest in one of the businesses present to earn 10 more points. Yanmu knew this would be challenging, given the people in attendance. A security guard blocked his entrance, asking if he knew where he was going. Yanmu asked if this wasn't the investment reception. The guard sneered, telling him to leave because the event was for people planning to spend millions. Yanmu ignored all of it and simply stated that he was also there to make some investments. However, the security guard mocked him, asking what kind of investor walked around in janitor clothes. Yanmu was not pleased by being judged based on his attire. At that moment, the blonde-haired man appeared and asked if Yanmu was following them. The guard laughed, saying that this kid really seemed lost and was even claiming he was there to invest. The chubby man chimed in, saying that Yanmu needed to learn to invest in himself first. He placed a hand on Yanmu's shoulder, condescendingly remarking that he had energy but couldn't waste it by just chasing after women. He said there was no use in Yanmu getting angry since that beauty would stay in his arms. Yanmu was about to walk past, but the guard blocked him again. At that moment, the chubby man noticed something and mentioned that Brother Kong had finally arrived. Yanmu glanced at Fang Yuxue and asked if she was doing this for money. She claimed it had nothing to do with him, but he pressed further, asking if she was truly willing to do anything for money and degrade herself in such a way. She remained silent and he turned away. Meanwhile, the chubby man asked Kong if his company had recently been acquired. Kong confirmed, and the chubby man mentioned that he too was looking to sell his business, though times were tough. As they spoke, Kong noticed someone else and excused himself, saying he had another person to speak to. He approached Yanmu. The chubby man, now puzzled, wondered why Kong Ru was addressing the young man as Mr. Yan. Fang Yuxue, watching from the sidelines, was equally curious. Mr. Ma, the chubby man, asked Kong if he had lost his mind by calling such a young man his boss. Kong clarified that they were misunderstanding. Mr. Yanmu was indeed the new owner of Fuda. The chubby man was shocked, asking if this was the person who had recently bought the company. Kong confirmed it. Immediately, Meidong turned to Yanmu, apologizing profusely for his previous behavior. He claimed it was all just a joke, that he didn't know Yanmu's identity, and begged for forgiveness, promising to do whatever was asked of him. Yanmu turned to him and asked if he was Mr. Meidong. Meidong confirmed, and Yanmu coldly told him to leave. Naturally, Meidong left fuming, muttering that Yanmu would pay for this humiliation. Once inside the event, Kong Rui asked if Yanmu had any particular investments in mind. Yanmu replied that he hadn't decided yet and needed to look around, knowing that the best auctions were likely already taken. That's when he noticed a booth for a company called Nebula, which would become highly influential in the internet industry. The representative handed him a card, explaining that they would be producing wireless routers. Yanmu recognized the man as Zhang Penju, the company's founder. Seeing him working so hard now made it clear why Nebula became so successful in the future. Kong advised against investing, claiming it was a foreign company with little value in the local market. Others agreed, dismissing the idea of internet routers as a distant prospect, not worth investing in yet. Penju insisted that routers were the future, with wireless signals soon becoming essential worldwide. The others scoffed, saying only an idiot would invest in something like that. They argued that such a business shouldn't even qualify for investment opportunities. That's when Yanmu pulled out a card and announced he would invest 15 million in the company. Penju, sweating nervously, asked if he was serious. Yanmu confirmed, saying he was optimistic about their future, confident that with the growth of the internet, Nebula would become a major force. Out of nowhere, Meidong appeared again, shouting for everyone not to listen to Yanmu, calling him a beggar spouting nonsense. He was about to insult Yanmu when Kong stepped in, warning Meidong to be quiet since they were friends, but this would be his last warning. Suddenly, Meidong revealed Kong's plans to abandon the company and leave everyone unpaid. The other investors started whispering, calling Kong untrustworthy. Meidong sneered, saying Kong would be smarter not to be the dog of this kid. Kong began to protest, but Yanmu cut him off, asking Meidong if he truly thought he didn't have 15 million to invest. Meidong arrogantly confirmed, saying he could spot a liar easily, especially one as poor as Yanmu. Yanmu challenged him to a bet. If he could produce the 15 million to invest, Meidong would have to kneel, publicly apologize, and slap himself 3 times. Meidong hesitated, sure Yanmu had no money, but worried about the consequences if he did. Just then, someone interrupted, saying that Mr. Mei was ruining the fun for everyone. It was Tang Ning, the second son of the Tang family, a significant figure, judging by Meidong's trembling reaction. Yanmu knew the Tang family produced materials essential for Nebula's equipment. Since he wants to invest in those guys, it would be perfect if he could get closer to them. Tang Ning asks what's going on, and Mei Dong says they're just having fun, joking around, nothing serious. However, Tang Ning asks if they really think he's an idiot, as he's sure something's going on and wants them to continue. Mei Dong says fine then, they'll make the bet. Meanwhile, Kong asks our guy if he's sure he wants to make this bet. Our guy says he's sure, but the problem is he doesn't know where his card is. At that moment, Fang Yuxue tells him he should just disappear before he embarrasses himself. She thinks to herself that this supposed fortune he seems to have is clearly a lie. Mei Dong grabs Fang Yuxue and tells our guy to stop pretending and just admit he lost the bet. However, it turns out the guy is just messing around. He dramatically pulls out the card out of nowhere. He turns to Penju and says that if he agrees to the deal, he'll make the investment right now. The president obviously agrees and says he'll go get the machine, thinking that despite his shabby appearance, this guy is reliable. Just then, Mei Dong intervened, ridiculing Yan Mu as a beggar and snatching his card, showing everyone it was a basic card. He mocked Yan Mu for lacking a special card if he had such wealth. Yan Mu took back the card, stating they'd soon see who had money. The transaction was initiated, but the machine showed insufficient funds. Mei Dong laughed, calling Yan Mu a fraud. Yan Mu, confused, couldn't understand why his funds were inaccessible. Kong wondered what to do next, and Penju, sensing something was wrong, believed Yan Mu wasn't lying. Mei Dong pretended to be magnanimous, suggesting he forgive Yan Mu and wouldn't demand he kneel. But Tang Ming intervened, asserting that bets must be honored. Kong protested, saying banking errors were possible. Mei Dong, growing impatient, demanded Yan Mu settle the bet. Yan Mu declared that Mei Dong feared he truly had money and wanted to escape. Mei Dong scoffed, claiming he had nothing to fear from a child. He ordered security to force Yan Mu to kneel if he didn't comply. Yan Mu calmly said it was too soon to conclude anything. As tensions rose, Yan Mu disappeared in a blur, taking down 2 guards instantly. Fang Yuxue was stunned, unable to comprehend Yan Mu's newfound combat skills. Even Tang Ming was amazed by how quickly Yan Mu dispatched the guards. Bank officials approached, but Mei Dong dismissed them. Tang Ning insisted the matter be resolved. As the account balance was checked, Mei Dong mocked the notion of Yan Mu having 50 million. Yan Mu confirmed he did, explaining his funds were temporarily frozen pending verification. Once cleared, he'd receive a higher tier card. The news stunned Fang Yuxue and Mei Dong. Yan Mu asked if the transfer could proceed, while the chubby man accused the bank official of being a stooge. The official handed Mei Dong the card, confirming everything was legitimate. Shortly after, he informed Yan Mu his bank issue was resolved, and he'd soon receive a gold card. Enraged, Mei Dong dismissed the significance of Yan Mu's wealth, demanding he make the promised investment. Yan Mu completed the transaction successfully. Kong asked if Mei Dong had anything more to say. Cornered, Mei Dong claimed they'd set him up and refused to kneel. Tang Ning kicked him behind the knee, reminding him to honor his bet. Mei Dong slapped himself, apologizing to Yan Mu, but Yan Mu pressed, saying he hadn't finished everything as agreed. Yan Mu, still maintaining his calm demeanor, suggested to Mei Dong that he might want to tell the truth about the former situation with Mr. Kong's company. Mei Dong, cornered, apologized, admitting that the issues with unpaid salaries were all fabricated. Before leaving, he muttered under his breath that he would eventually put Yan Mu in a coffin. The Nebula founder approached Yan Mu, expressing his gratitude and assuring him that he would not disappoint. The crowd surrounded and praised Yan Mu, while Fang Yuxue was left questioning if he had always been this wealthy. She recalled her parents pushing her to meet Mei Dong that day, insisting she find a rich man as they saw no value in raising her otherwise. Her mother made her usual dramatic claims, saying she wasn't forcing her, but failure would mean the family's extinction. As Tang Ming observed, stating their meeting must be destiny, Fang Yuxue left. Yan Mu earned his points from the system, which then informed him it would take a 10% cut of his earnings. Yan Mu was irritated by the unexpected tax. At that moment, Kong's bald assistant informed them of a new issue. Workers were rioting again despite the transfer of payments. The workers demanded severance, fearing job loss under new management. Kong, unsure of how to handle the situation with projects taking time to commence, asked Yan Mu what they should do. Yan Mu suggested returning to the company to assess the situation. Arriving at Fuda's site, chaos erupted as workers clashed. A helmeted worker pushed a blonde man against the wall, demanding to meet with Mr. Kong. In the commotion, a drill was brandished and, shockingly, used. Someone called for an ambulance as Yan Mu and his team arrived. The injured worker was unconscious, with others shouting about preventing intrusions. Yan Mu calmly asked if an ambulance had been called. The bald assistant confirmed, but it would take 10 minutes and by then it might be too late. One desperate worker kneeled, explaining his daughter was ill and he needed money. The scene stirred memories of Yan Mu's father. Another worker struggled to help, realizing the injured man wasn't breathing. Kong ordered the 2 instigators bound. They smugly claimed they were helping establish order, but the bald assistant scolded them, blaming their stupidity for worsening the situation. Yan Mu, noticing the dying worker, asked the system if he could be saved. The system offered a costly upgrade option to obtain a medicine that might work, but all Yan Mu could access was basic enhancements. The system then proposed another solution, spending 12 survival points to keep the man alive until medical help arrived. The function was one-time use, so caution was advised. Yanmu hesitated but agreed, unwilling to stand by idly. The workers' condition stabilized and the instigators were thrown to the ground. Yanmu, furious, condemned their reckless actions. Realization struck these were the same thugs who had threatened Mengyo earlier. When Kong inquired, they admitted it, revealing that Yanmu was burdened with a debt caused by a neighbor's gambling mother with plans to exploit his sister. Kong, enraged, demanded to know if they had been misusing the company's name and ruining its reputation. Yanmu confirmed Meidong's involvement. Kong acknowledged the connection but assured Yanmu they would handle it now that he was in charge. Without a second thought, Yanmu delivered a swift kick to the blonde instigator's chest, ensuring his actions had consequences. The workers cheered at the sight of Yanmu dealing with the thugs, especially since those two had been harassing them. Finally, the ambulance arrived and the paramedics pushed through the crowd to attend to the injured man. Kong expressed relief that the situation hadn't turned fatal. Unsure of what to do next, he asked Yanmu for guidance. Yanmu stated that their first priority should be calming the workers, but the problem was there was no work available for now. The workers voiced their distrust, complaining that they were always promised payment but never saw results. Yanmu assured them that the company would implement formal employment contracts, making it legally binding to pay them. The workers, many of whom were likely undocumented, seemed cautiously hopeful. Some remarked that they'd heard contracts meant mandatory payments by law, though they were unfamiliar with the details. Kong allowed Yanmu to take charge, noting that without him the company would have collapsed. When Kong asked what should be done about the two thugs, Yanmu said their focus should be on preserving the company's reputation. He recommended covering all medical expenses for the injured worker. Kong promised to handle it, ensuring nothing would be overlooked. Yanmu then left, advising Kong to deal with the troublemakers. Back at Yanmu's home, he wondered if his parents were back yet. Opening the door, he was greeted by a bright sunbeam. Mengyao asked why he was late. He explained he had business to attend to. She inquired if he was working extra hard to marry Fang Yuxue. Yanmu dismissed the notion, promising instead to find a better place for her soon. He knew Mengyo's dream was to live in a grand house, and perhaps he could make it happen tomorrow. She asked what surprise he had in store, but he suggested she rest first since it was late. Lying in bed, Yanmu reflected on the system's grip over not just his life but the lives of others. He wondered about its limitations. The system then informed him he could enter a unique space when in a secure location. The room distorted and the system asked if he was ready for his inheritance. Confused, he questioned what inheritance it meant. As he looked down, he saw an image of himself from before his rebirth. The system explained that he must accept the Lord's inheritance or the world would be annihilated. Not much of a choice, he thought, and before he could answer, the process began. The system warned that after receiving the inheritance, his level would be restricted, and no more missions would be available for a while. Staring at his hand, Yanmu wondered what was happening. The inheritance completed and the system displayed a progress bar, 1%. It explained that without sufficient attributes, he couldn't unlock all abilities. Yanmu groaned, frustrated by the system's games, but resolved to claim everything in due time. From outside, Mengyao asked if he was tired. He opened the door and saw her standing there. It was morning and Mengyao reminded him that he had promised to take her out. Apologizing, Yanmu assured her they would leave soon. The scene shifted to the streets of Jiangsheng. The two walked and Mengyao noticed Yanmu wore the same clothes as before. She pointed out Fang Yuxue, who was once again clinging to the chubby man from before. Mengyao remarked that Fang Yuxue didn't seem well and asked if something was wrong. Yanmu brushed it off, saying it was her choice and none of their concern. As they continued walking, Mengyao kept asking about his history with Fang Yuxue. Yanmu deflected and they arrived at a property showroom. A saleswoman greeted them, but after hearing Yanmu wanted to see villas, she scoffed, suggesting they look at smaller homes due to their appearance. Even Mengyao was surprised, questioning Yanmu's finances. Yanmu promised to buy her a grand home, which left her in shock. The saleswoman dismissed him, mocking his apparent poverty and suggesting he was confusing the value of such properties. Mengyao, embarrassed, wanted to leave. The saleswoman continued her insults, saying their clothes weren't even worth $200, so how could they afford a mansion? Yanmu took Mengyo's arm, intending to leave, when a man with purple hair appeared. Recognizing him as Sufi, Yanmu attempted a friendly greeting, but Sufi coldly brushed him off. He sneered, pointing out Yanmu's poverty and questioning why he was talking about buying a villa. Yanmu ignored the comment and asked why Sufi was speaking to him at all. Sufi, feigning nonchalance, mentioned that he managed a few small businesses and was on the market for a new house. The saleswoman eagerly jumped in, praising Sufi and saying that he was perfect for one of their exquisite villas. Sufi then turned to Yanmu, smugly stating that he had more pressing matters and that Yanmu, being a drifter, could take his time. Yanmu, unbothered, replied that he had a relaxed life, so Sufi could go ahead. The saleswoman accompanied Sufi to view the villas, leaving Yanmu to step aside, pretending to make a phone call. It was clear he wasn't planning to let this slide. Meanwhile, Sufi pulled out his card, ready to make a purchase without further inspection. The saleswoman informed him that the suite cost $2 million and confirmed if he was sure. She was thrilled about the high commission she stood to earn. Xu Fi, driven by his long-standing envy of Yan Mu for his academic success and popularity with girls, took the opportunity to feel superior. He glanced at Meng Yao, noting Yan Mu's absence, and mocked her, suggesting that Yan Mu had abandoned her. Yan Mu returned, apologizing for the delay. Xu Fi dismissively remarked that it didn't matter, then asked what kind of house Yan Mu intended to buy, mocking him by offering to put his father to work as a laborer. Meng Yao, furious, told Xu Fei to stop trampling on people's dignity with his money. Xu Fei, sneering, retorted that money was the harsh reality of society. Yan Mu calmly asked Meng Yao to settle down, warning Xu Fei that any further disrespect would make him forget they had ever been classmates. Xu Fei, undeterred, prodded Yan Mu's chest, claiming he wasn't in a position to lecture anyone. The saleswoman chimed in, telling Yan Mu he clearly couldn't afford anything and should leave. Xu Fei agreed and called for security. But just then, a well-dressed man approached Yan Mu, informing him that his gold bank card was ready. Another senior saleswoman appeared, asking about the commotion. The first saleswoman complained that a troublemaker was causing problems without being able to afford a house. Yan Mu pulled out his VIP gold card, silencing the room, and asked who claimed he couldn't pay. The senior administrator immediately recognized the card, apologized profusely, and offered her services. Meanwhile, Xu Fi, desperate to maintain his standing, grabbed the administrator, insisting he was a valued customer. She questioned whether he recognized the card Yan Mu held. Xu Fi glanced at it dismissively before realizing it was a super VIP card, not just any bank card. Stunned, he stumbled, accusing Yan Mu of theft before walking away. Yan Mu, having researched property values, asked for prices and was told 10 million each. He confidently handed over his card, announcing he'd buy. The senior saleswoman, now eager to serve, prepared the transaction, but Yan Mu stopped her, declaring that any commission would go to someone else, not her. The administrator then fired the saleswoman on the spot. Xu Fei tried to befriend Yan Mu, suggesting they go out for drinks. Before Yan Mu could respond, security escorted Xu Fei away. Xu Fei pleaded, asking if Yan Mu really wanted him removed by force. Yan Mu reminded him that Xu Fei had just called for the same treatment. Panicking, Xu Fei offered to apologize. Curious, Yan Mu asked the system if it could read people's fortunes. The system confirmed it could, even revealing potential for discovering treasures. Yan Mu considered the strategic use of such abilities. He then noticed a dark aura around Xu Fi and warned him to be careful, as bad luck seemed to loom over him. Xu Fi dismissed it, still begging for reconciliation. Meanwhile, the dismissed saleswoman begged the administrator for another chance, claiming her father's illness would worsen without her job. Meng Yao, feeling sympathy, asked Yan Mu to reconsider. Yan Mu agreed, and the administrator allowed the saleswoman to stay, attributing her second chance to Yan Mu's decision. Observing Meng Yao's golden fortune aura, Yan Mu noted she was destined for good things. Nearby, an older woman, impressed by Yan Mu's success, asked if he'd like to meet her granddaughters. Yan Mu, bold as ever, replied that he was with his girlfriend and was there to buy her a house. Yan Mu whispered quietly to Meng Yao, asking her to cooperate and play along so they could avoid an awkward situation. She turned away, blushing, and he asked what was wrong. Just then, he received a call from Fang Yuxue. Meng Yao immediately noticed his change in demeanor. Checking his old model phone, Yan Mu saw a message from Fang Yuxue saying she was in room 606 and needed help. Yan Mu wondered if she had willingly gone to the hotel with Madame. Meng Yao saw the message too and insisted that if he didn't help Fang Yuxue and something terrible happened, he'd regret it. Yan Mu, however, dismissed it, saying it was no longer his problem. Meng Yao pleaded with him, saying he couldn't just stand by. She told him to help Yuxue and assured him she'd make her way home alone. Reluctantly, Yan Mu ran off, telling Meng Yao to be careful. The scene shifted to room 606, where Madong was making lecherous advances on Fang Yuxue, commenting on her figure with disgusting remarks. Fang Yuxue demanded he stay away from her, but Madong grabbed her wrist, reminding her that it was her family who arranged the meeting, so she had better comply. He began tearing at her clothes, claiming she'd already promised to spend time with him. At that moment, the door opened. Yan Mu entered, holding up his phone and announcing that everything was recorded. Madong, shocked, lunged for the phone, but Yan Mu kneed him in the stomach, causing him to collapse and retch. Madong threatened Yan Mu, claiming he'd still have his way with Fang Yuxue and send thugs after him. Yan Mu responded by slamming the phone against Madong's ear, demanding he repeat himself. Madong, undeterred, called Yan Mu a worthless loser who would never have any woman. Yan Mu delivered another harsh kick, finally silencing him. Turning to Fang Yuxue, who was complaining of feeling overheated and weak, Yan Mu realized she'd been drugged. He carried her to the bathroom, placed her in the tub, and told her to call if she needed anything. Meanwhile, Madong tried crawling away but received another kick from Yan Mu. When Madong protested, claiming he hadn't actually done anything, Yan Mu reminded him of the recorded evidence, Desperate, Midong asked what Yan Mu wanted. Yan Mu, ever pragmatic, asked if Midong was prepared to pay for his freedom. Midong, paranoid, suspected Fang Yuxue of setting him up. Yan Mu dismissed the notion, stating it was none of his concern what happened when the footage went public. Midong countered, claiming the hotel wouldn't release security footage to him, to which Yan Mu coolly replied that he had connections with the hotel manager and invited him to test his luck. Panicking, Midong tried negotiating, offering 5 million. Yan Mu scoffed, demanding 40 million. Fang Yuxue emerged from the bathroom at that moment, and Midong, frantic, raised his offer to 10 million. Yan Mu pressed on, settling at 30 million and warning Midong to keep his word. Clearly defeated, Midong fled, muttering threats of revenge. Yan Mu turned to Fang Yuxue, asking if she was okay. She thanked him for his help. Yan Mu brushed it off and prepared to leave. Suddenly, Fang Yuxue grabbed his arm, asking if it was true that he planned to invest 15 million in the Nebula Group. Yan Mu questioned if she hadn't seen him transfer the money earlier. She admitted she had, but was confused about how he suddenly acquired such wealth. Yan Mu avoided the question, instead asking if money was more important to her than feelings. Fang Yuxue released his arm and Yan Mu left, telling her she'd find her way home on her own. Back at the real estate company, Manga asked if he had sorted everything out. Yan Mu confirmed he had, thanking the manager, who assured him he would always be treated as a valued client at their company. Yan Mu gently comforted Mengyo, who admitted she was tired and didn't want to intrude on anyone's life anymore. Yan Mu reassured her that he would finalize the paperwork for their new residence tomorrow. Meanwhile, at Meidong's office, his underlings fussed over him as he ranted about his injuries. They demanded to know who had hurt him, ready to retaliate. Meidong, seething with rage, told them to hold off for now. He had plans to deal with the Fang family first, determined to claim Fang Yuxue if he had to pay the 30 million. Back at the Fang household, Fang Yuxue's parents speculated about her absence. Her mother suggested it was a good sign, implying she had captivated Meidong's attention, likely working her charm. Just then, Fang Yuxue returned, visibly distressed. Her mother, feigning delight, questioned her lateness. Fang Yuxue quickly shut it down, announcing there would be no deal with Meidong. Shocked, her mother demanded an explanation. Fang Yuxue revealed Meidong's attempt to drug her and how Yan Mu had intervened. Her father dismissed Yan Mu's interference as a nuisance, while Fang Yuxue, noting his change, mentioned Yan Mu's recent investments and real estate acquisition. Her mother, eyes lighting up at the prospect of the wealthy son-in-law, insisted she rekindle the relationship. The scene shifted to an internet cafe where a young man engrossed in a game of Crossfire impressed his friend, who suggested a casual match. A bystander encouraged them to make it competitive, wagering a pack of cigarettes. The gamer, consumed by his addiction, agreed. He lost terribly 3-20 to the newcomer, who casually suggested he relax. Forced to pay up, he grumbled about his bad day, only for the tension to escalate when he encountered a group outside, leading to a punch in the face. Though seemingly unrelated, this interlude highlighted the gritty reality surrounding Jiang Qing's youth. Back at Yan Mu's home, he considered spending survival points to unlock more abilities, including enhanced perception of others' fortunes. Frustrated at the slow pace of earning points, the system, with biting sarcasm, reminded him that life was tough. It suggested he could even improve his appearance with points. Contemplating this, Yan Mu's thoughts were interrupted by another call from Fang Yuxue. He reluctantly answered, only to hear her mother's voice, sweet-talking him into giving the family access to his wealth in exchange for reconciling with Fang Yuxue. Yan Mu snapped, telling her to stop bothering him. Shortly after, Yan Mu received the finalized contract for the properties he purchased. Meng Yao, noticing his glum demeanor, asked if he was okay. He apologized, and the real estate manager thanked him for his patronage. Wandering the streets of Jiangxing, Yan Mu encountered Fang Yuxue once again. She seemed to appear intentionally, and Yan Mu, weary of the constant run-ins, asked why she was following him, reiterating that they were done. Fang Yuxue revealed that her brother had gotten into trouble at a cyber cafe and owed $500,000. Worse, he had been kidnapped, and the captors demanded the money for his release. Yan Mu, unimpressed, coldly stated that her brother's problems were not his concern. Desperate, Fang Yuxue grabbed his hand and offered herself, promising to fulfill his physical desires if he helped. Yan Mu, disgusted, pulled away, telling her to have some self-respect and lamenting how far she'd fallen. Tears streaming, Fang Yuxue pleaded, saying her family was powerless to save her brother. Yan Mu, unable to fully suppress his compassion, reluctantly agreed to help, but only if they cut all ties afterward. Fang Yuxue resisted, insisting they were still family and couldn't simply walk away from each other. Yan Mu, visibly exhausted by the entire situation, told Fang Yuxue's brother that if they were truly family, there was no need to continue the conversation. Meng Yao, who was growing increasingly frustrated, accused Yan Mu of being cold-hearted, insisting that Fang Yuxue was truly suffering. Yan Mu, unmoved, simply stated that her problems were no longer his responsibility. Mengyo paused, commenting that he wasn't always this unfeeling, and that she didn't understand what had gone wrong between him and Fang Yuxue, since their relationship once seemed solid. Yan Mu thought back to the pain and betrayal of his past life. Despite his internal struggle, he was resolute. Getting involved again would only bring more trouble. He told Manga to head home while he checked out the internet cafe himself, determined to end the matter once and for all. At the cafe, Fang Yuxue's brother was held captive, surrounded by thugs demanding the ransom. When he tried to argue, they laughed and threatened violence unless his family paid up. Outside, a guard tried to stop Yanmu from entering. Without hesitation, Yanmu punched him, knocking him to the ground. Once inside, the thugs recognized Yanmu, wondering why he had come. Calmly, Yanmu declared that there were too many of them, so he needed a boost. He swallowed a strength-enhancing pill, increasing his power significantly. One thug, who had previously targeted Mengyo, taunted Yanmu, reminding him of a debt. Yanmu coldly questioned why he should pay, and the brother, tied up, begged him to hand over the money to avoid escalating the situation. But Yanmu had no intention of complying. He exuded a dangerous red aura, warning everyone to keep still. When one of the thugs lunged, Yanmu struck with unyielding force, knocking him across the room. More goons surrounded Yanmu, but he fought back effortlessly, his enhanced strength making short work of them. Fang Yuxue's brother, shocked, demanded to know why Yanmu had taken so long to intervene, even suggesting that Yanmu should compensate him to keep quiet. Yanmu, perplexed, realized that the brother had no gratitude, only greed. In response, he slapped him, demanding to know when he'd grown so bold. Yanmu warned him to go home before he lost his temper entirely, reminding him that he'd only come because of Fang Yuxue's desperate plea. Just as Yanmu turned to leave, Madong and a mob of thugs blocked his exit. Madong, thirsting for revenge, ordered his men to kill Yanmu. Faced with overwhelming numbers, Yanmu's options were limited. The system intervened, offering an agility pill in exchange for more points. Yanmu consumed it, enhancing his speed and reflexes. He easily dodged a thrown brick and moved so quickly it seemed as if he were teleporting, dismantling Madong's men with ruthless efficiency. Madong found himself on the ground again, helpless against Yanmu's might. Yanmu asked why he plotted his death, and Madong, ever blunt, said it was payback for what Yanmu had done to him. Yanmu, amused by Madong's flawed logic, agreed it made sense, though it was unfortunate for Madong to be on the losing end. With time running short, Yanmu demanded compensation for the wasted effort and points spent. Desperate, Madong offered 20 million to avoid further punishment. Yanmu accepted, insisting on immediate payment. Shortly after, Yanmu's account was credited with 50 million, as Madong had neglected to transfer the 30 million owed from their last encounter. Yanmu dismissed Madong, who vowed to recover his losses one day. Turning to Fang Yuxue's brother, Yanmu coldly asked if he knew his way home. The brother, still ungrateful, spat out threats, claiming he'd never forget the humiliation. Yanmu, unimpressed, told him he should be grateful to be alive and warned him to stop using weak excuses for his failures. Tired of the pointless drama, Yanmu demanded the brother disappear. Another harsh lesson was delivered, leaving no doubt about who was in control. Yanmu dismissed the departing Fang Yuxue's brother, who threatened to tell their parents everything, believing it would cause trouble for Yanmu. Unbothered, Yanmu decided to check his system. Despite having gained 50 million, there was no change in his survival points. The system curtly explained that money obtained dishonestly didn't count. Yanmu grumbled, realizing even the system demanded moral earnings now. Back at the Fang household, the mother berated Fang Yuxue for failing to secure Yanmu, whom she disparagingly called trash. She questioned how Fang Yuxue could let her brother Xiaoyu suffer. Fang Yuxue tried explaining that Yanmu had completely severed ties with her, but Xiaoyu stormed in, battered and bruised. Their mother, relieved to see him, asked why he looked so beaten up. Xiaoyu blamed Fang Yuxue, claiming that instead of helping, Yanmu had humiliated him. Fang Yuxue was surprised to learn that Yanmu had intervened. Xiaoyu twisted the story, saying Yanmu had only shown up to make things worse, and his slap hurt more than the thug's beatings. He accused Yanmu of profiting from her suffering, claiming Yanmu's wealth came from extorting Madong. Their mother, incensed, declared Yanmu to be worse than an animal for using her daughter's pain. Fang Yuxue resolved to confront him, unsure if this explained his motives during their relationship. Meanwhile, Meng Yao questioned Yanmu's mood, wondering why he seemed upset with the system. She teased him about being beaten up by someone. Yanmu brushed it off, telling her to relax. When Meng Yao pressed, asking if he was still hung up on Fang Yuxue, their conversation was interrupted as Fang Yuxue arrived, demanding to talk. Meng Yao, taken aback, sarcastically asked if Fang Yuxue was joining them for dinner. Yanmu, unfazed, told her she wasn't welcome and asked why she was there. Fang Yuxue, furious, slammed her hand on the table, accusing him of beating her brother while dining with another woman. Yanmu clarified that Meng Yao was like a sister to him, but Fang Yuxue dismissed the notion, pressing him on why he'd harmed Xiaoyu if he'd gone to save him. Fang Yuxue insinuated that Yanmu was with Meng Yao out of spite. Frustrated, Yanmu demanded to know if she was delusional. Fang Yuxue accused him of flaunting his wealth to humiliate her family, suggesting he could have used money to solve everything. Yanmu reminded her of his poverty and declared he wouldn't waste a single coin on her vampire family. Enraged, Fang Yuxue denied being from a family of leeches while Meng Yao watched confused. Fang Yuxue's voice rose as she accused Yanmu of moving on quickly. Yanmu told her to shut up, questioning why it bothered her so much and pointing out her obsession. He warned that if she kept believing her brother's lies, there was no need to talk again. Fang Yuxue lashed out, claiming Yanmu had always used her for money and tried to slap him, but he caught her wrist. He reminded her that their relationship was over, and she needed to stop acting irrationally. Breaking free, Fang Yuxue vowed he would regret this. Manga, bewildered, asked if Yanmu and Fang Yuxue had truly broken up. Yanmu confirmed it, suspecting Fang Yuxue's behavior was a ploy to regain his attention. Manga, seeing Yanmu's goodness, wondered why Fang Yuxue treated him so poorly. Yanmu reassured her with a smile, encouraging her to eat so they could head home. The scene shifted to Nebula Group's office, where the president thanked Yanmu for his investment. Yanmu reviewed a project proposal, finally feeling optimistic about a promising development. However, while looking at the papers, Yanmu asks why the man is choosing to use low-quality materials. The president explains that they tried using high-quality materials, but the profit margins were too low, and people were refusing to cooperate. Our boy comments that this will be a big problem, but Penju says that at the start, they just need to pass the test, so there is no need to produce many. Yanmu agrees and suggests focusing sales primarily on communication companies. Penju is surprised he hadn't thought of that before and sees it as the best option to sell to them, especially since they constantly transmit signals. He only comments on the material, and our protagonist tells him to relax, saying he will find someone to secure what they need. Back on the streets of Jiangsheng, he spends a lot of time there. Looking at the card, he knows the best thing would be to form a partnership with the Tang Company, but he has no idea how or why they would cooperate with Nebula. That's when he looks to the side and sees a man grabbing a girl by the hair, telling her to shut up. He quickly recognizes her as the girl who humiliated him at the real estate office, and it seems she's now working as a waitress. Some other men approach and demand the man let the girl go, or they will call the police. But man, in this city, everyone seems ready to stir up trouble, because out comes another knife. Then the savior of girls who humiliate him arrives, grabbing the man by the arm. The man warns that the Lord is interested in this woman, so it would be best not to interfere. Oh boy, it's Medong again. He can't see a girl with two big assets at this age without causing trouble. Our boy then begins to slightly twist the man's wrist and asks if he's sure he wants to continue. The desperate man immediately yells for him to let go, saying it hurts too much. Our hero finally releases him, warning that it would be best if he's never seen there again. The coward runs away, and the girl thanks our protagonist. He asks why she's working there instead of at the company, and she explains that it's her day off and she's taking on extra work to help pay for her father's surgery. Our boy then asks if she knows Madame. She says that Guy has been trying to offer her some kind of support, but she has always refused, and if it weren't for him today, things would have gone badly. Our boy acknowledges this and tells her to rest, thanking her once again. With that, she leaves. He takes out his phone and tells the bald guard to keep an eye on Madame, who should be at the hospital at this moment. The coward is there with Fang Yuxue, telling her he arranged everything she wanted so she could stay a little closer. She mentions that Yanmu must have fallen into their trap and that the fun part is just beginning. Meidong asks what they will do if things go wrong again. She simply tells him to shut up and obey because she's the one helping him with his revenge. Besides, there's no need to worry because Yanmu is deeply in love with her. Soon he would soften up and show up to apologize. Here comes this villainess plotting against our boy. She calls him and invites him to dinner, saying there's something good to eat. She apologizes for what happened earlier and says they need to reconcile. Then she suggests meeting again at the restaurant where they had their first date. She turns to Meidong and says her part is done, and the rest is up to him. She wants 30 million when the job is done, and then he will also get what he wants. Hold on, is she really selling herself for revenge? Now that's hatred. And she even wants to get back together with the guy. However, it seems that Yanmu is already aware that the two are working together to ruin him. He then asks the system how many points he needs to make an upgrade. It responds that he'll need to earn at least 20 more. He asks how many points can be bought with 30 million points, and the system tells him 10. He wonders how many millions this cursed system is stealing from him. With that, he gets up, saying he will have to find a way to make this easier. He then calls Mr. Kong and tells him he will need some useful information for tomorrow. In the next scene, he's arriving at the restaurant. The same woman who never changes her clothes is already seated at the table, not even bothering to dress up for the date with our protagonist. As soon as he sits down, she says she ordered all his favorites. She asks if he wants more drinks and apologizes for everything that happened recently. The system then informs him that there are sleeping drugs in the wine she's serving. However, due to the system's evolution, it poses no threat to him. Fang Yuxue is wondering why he hasn't drunk it yet. Our protagonist takes a sip. He says that nothing that happened matters and they can leave it in the past. She remarks that she never imagined things would end like this. She always believed they would get married in this life. Yanmu states that if he married her, her family would drain him dry until he died penniless. She slams the table angrily, wondering why he still isn't asleep. He asks if he said anything wrong and she responds no, but that he is all she has in life. She then asks why her family pampers that brother of hers so much. She replies that it's natural to pamper a brother, while internally she's seething, still trying to figure out why he hasn't passed out. At that moment, our protagonist slams his face onto the table. She approaches, asking if he's okay, but you already know she's gloating inside. Smiling, she says he thinks he's strong, but in the end, he will lose everything to her. The scene then shifts to a hotel. Our boy was asleep and wakes up. Man, I thought he was faking it, pretending to sleep, but he actually passed out. Turns out our boy knew about the trap and still fell into it. He's a genius. He wakes up next to that girl from the real estate office who immediately calls him a bastard. He puts his hand on his face, saying he's sure he was having lunch with Fang Yuxue. So how did he end up there? The girl, however, claims that he was the one who messaged her, telling her to show up, and she never imagined she'd be treated worse than an animal. She runs away, saying she was wrong to think he was a good person. But the rascal is smiling, saying that if they want to fight him, he's ready to play. Did he do it on purpose? Or did he mess with her while pretending he wasn't? Or maybe nothing happened, and he just slept, who knows? The scene then changes to a cafe. There are Fang Yuxue, Madong, and then the last fool arrives. She tells Fang Yuxue she did everything as instructed and the images are on her phone. Fang Yuxue thanks her, tells her she can leave, and says she will get a call when they need her again. But she warns her to keep those photos safe, as the plan could change. And of course, if she loses them, it won't be good for her father, who's in the hospital. Madong compliments Fang Yuxue, saying he never imagined she could be this cruel. She replies that Yanmu is the ungrateful one and everything she's doing is just taking back what was supposed to be hers. Madong says the 30 million will be worth it, and if the plan works, he has nothing to complain about. She then tells him to hurry because it's time for Yanmu to pay for what he did. Today, she would make him taste what it's like to be used. The scene changes to a hotel lobby where our boy asks what she means by that. Madong says it seems he doesn't know what he did, but that they're seeking justice. Our protagonist responds that he's a law-abiding citizen, so he has nothing to fear. However, Fang Yuxue says that last night they had dinner and he still did that with another woman. Madong adds that everyone already knows about the girl he allegedly forced into his room and the police are on their way. Even the reporters are there, and if this leaks, his life will be ruined. But Yanmu asks if the two of them think he's an idiot. That's when Fang Yuxue starts noticing that she and Madong are the ones being recorded. Madong insists, saying that Yanmu doesn't know what's good for him. However, our boy just tells him to wait a moment because he needs to make a call. At that moment, the secretary says Madong's and Miss Fang Yuxue's plans and threats have already been posted online. The fool's cigarette drops to the ground and he starts trembling, demanding to know what's going on. The reporters begin shouting, stating there's plenty of evidence that Madong used his influence to suppress numerous women. Additionally, his company is deep in debt. The reporters surround him and Fang Yuxue, demanding explanations for everything that's happened. The system then states that now that Madong's company is going bankrupt, it will probably be auctioned off. I'm not entirely sure, but I think the girl with the red hair is Tang Ming. She told our boy they paid her $500,000 to be part of all this. Our boy said he had enough evidence to put Madong behind bars for life. He then questioned whether she was trying to help him or Madong. Our boy leaves the scene, saying he's going to take over that fool's company. Meanwhile, Fang Yuxue seethes with rage. 2 days later, everything is being announced on TV, and Mingyao learns about it. In interviews, Fang Yuxue always claimed she had no idea who Madong was, trying to distance herself from the subject. This makes Mingyao realize that Villainous wasn't a good person. Back in his room, our boy wonders why he hasn't received any survival points after taking down Madong's company. He looks at the system and asks for just 1 point, complaining that it's been a long time since he earned anything. It's a very unfair world. That's when he receives enough points to upgrade the system. The window shines and suddenly a pink bunny appears out of nowhere. He stares at it, wondering what kind of crazy entity it is. He gets up, wanting to know how this is supposed to help him. But suddenly, the little creature vanishes. Whoa! A small hand grabs him, saying he's a good boy. You all know what's coming, right? Oh, more well-behaved than I expected. Well, well-behaved in terms of clothes, but not in actions. The girl is aggressive. Actually, never mind, she's not well-behaved at all, folks. She asks if he's satisfied and tells him to leave a 5-star review. At that moment, Mengyao appears at the door and asks if he's seen the news, but he tells her not to come in. However, she opens the door, recounting everything that happened with Fang Yuxue. Man, I thought she wouldn't see the scene, but it's too late. She's already face-to-face with everything. She's left speechless and apologizes in despair. Our boy yells at the system, and she remarks that she thought it was a little cuter. Mengyao, truly pure, faints upon seeing the scene. The system-like figure seems to place a cure on her face. Mengyao then wakes up and asks who she is. Only in this work could something like this happen. She introduces herself as Yanmu's system. She says to call her Xiao Yu and informs that from now on, it will all be living together. Mengyao, completely confused, asks Yanmu if by any chance she's dreaming. Meanwhile, at the Feng family house, the mother is trying to console the daughter, saying she'll find a guy soon. The brother, however, as always, is furious, saying she can't get anything right. The father comments that now that Madong is in prison, the money they were supposed to earn is gone too. And he tells his daughter that she will have to find another rich man to secure the family's future. Fang Yuxue, however, starts getting angry, wondering why she has to find a man to support this family. And with that, she begins to hate everyone. It is at this moment that the mysterious Su, a shadowy figure, asks if she wants to make a deal. The shadow introduces itself as Sue and says it can fulfill her desires. However, she lowers her head, thinking she must be hallucinating. But then the shadow transforms into a person, saying it knows she won't believe it, which is why it wants to make this deal. Sue tells her that she was used, abused, and abandoned by her ex-boyfriend, so how can she not be angry and full of hate? She admits that she is indeed full of hate, and the shadow offers to make a contract that will give her the revenge she wants. Instantly, she starts being consumed by the shadows, saying what she wants is money. It doesn't matter. One moment she's regretful and angry with her family, and the next she's ready to ruin our protagonist. At that moment, her brother asks why she's so quiet and if she doesn't care about the family's future. Seeing her staring at him, he questions why she's looking at him like that and why she's so useless. Her mother then says her brother is just stressed and she shouldn't take his words to heart, asking if she has thought about what she suggested. Sue then explains that she only needs to gather information about this particular boss and hand it over because she will do whatever it takes. Even her mother is startled by how motivated she has become. Let's see who the boss is this time. It can't possibly be Madon again. Back at Yanmu's house, he explains everything to Meng Yao. Apparently, he really did explain everything since she's talking about time travel. Man, he already spilled everything. No holding back. Xiaoyu, however, warns that time travel comes at a high price. For example, Yanmu is now obligated to complete missions for the rest of his life or he could die at any moment. Suddenly, Yanmu gets up, saying he has something to take care of. The two girls are curious and ask where he's going. He explains that he's just going to meet Mr. Tang to check out a car. With that, Xiaoyu gives Meng Yao a kiss on the cheek. Is this going to be a forbidden romance? Oh no. Actually, she used some kind of devilish magic and poor Meng Yao fell asleep. Yanmu grabs her arm, asking what she did. She explains that she altered Meng Yao's memories because it's not good for her to know everything. At least the system seems to know what it's doing, because if left to this madman, he'd tell everyone. However, he lost his survival point for doing so and is frustrated. But she doesn't seem to care much. And the fool falls to the ground, thinking he can hit the system and have the power bounce back to him. She even jokes, saying it seems the system has a few bugs. She then tells them to hurry and check out the car. But our boy says he feels like going alone. However, she explains that if they stay too far apart, she'll suddenly teleport to his side. Already imagining the scare Tang would get, he realizes he has no choice. Man, this little system is sometimes pretty friendly.